Hello, I want to do a video on a Bible prophecy that I really like. It's one of the biggest Bible prophecies that in the 19th, 20th century that the Bible said that would happen is that Israel became a nation again in 1945 or 1948, sorry. But they'd been scattered for 1800 years because when after Jesus died, like 30 to 40 years after Jesus died, the Romans come in 70 AD and destroyed the temple and left the whole land wasteland, and that was a punishment from God. And ever since 70 AD, the land had been like a wasteland. And Ezekiel, and I'm going to be talking about in Ezekiel 36 and 37 about the prophecy of Israel coming back as a nation um, from destitute, basically. In Ezekiel 36, God says concerning the people of Israel on why he sent them out. He destroyed them in 70 AD. Why he did it was, the Son of Man, when the people of Israel were living in their own land, they defiled it by the conduct and their actions. Their conduct was as a woman's monthly uncleanness in my sight. So I poured my wrath on them because they had shed blood in the land and because they had defiled it with their idols. I dispersed them among the nations, and they were scattered through the countries. I judged them according to their conduct and their actions. And wherever they went, the nations, they profaned my holy name. And for it was said of them, these are the Lord's people, and yet they had to leave their own lands. Why would God do that to his own people? I can stop right there. But I just want to show you why he did it. And like I said, they'd been gone for 1800 years, and they came back in 48 as prophesied. President Truman was the president at the time. He had a lot to do with that. But right before they went back in 48, right after World War II and ended in 45, we all know that the Jews, were basically slaughtered by the Germans, and they killed over 6 million Jews. And this was the worst, basically the worst time that they'd been in exile for 1800 years. And at the very end of their exile was the worst part, which was the Holocaust. And then 48, God regathered them and brought them back in 48. But in Ezekiel 37, he prophesies about the Jewish people and the sufferings that they went through, and the Holocaust. We all seen those pictures of bodies just piled up and in ditches, just bodies, just 6 million of them they killed. But in Ezekiel 37, he talks about it. He talks about it here in Ezekiel. And he said, the hand of the Lord was on me, and he brought me out by the Spirit of the Lord and set me in the middle of the valley, and it was full of bones. He led me back and forth among them, and I saw a great many of bones on the floor of the valley, bones that were very dry. And he asked me, Son of man, can these bones live? I said, Sovereign Lord, you alone know. Then he said to me, prophesy to these bones and say to them, dry bones, hear the word of the Lord. This is what the Sovereign Lord says to these bones. What the Lord says to these bones, I will make breath enter you, and you will come to life. I will attach tendons to you and make flesh upon you and cover you with skin. I will put breath in you, and you will come to life. Then you will know that I am the Lord. So I prophesied and commanded. As I was prophesying, there was a loud noise. So basically, he talks about how these bones start coming back together, but they still don't have any breath in them. And he says, prophesy the breath into the man, to the Son of Man. Prophesy to them, and he comes in the breath with the four winds and the breath into the slain, that they will live. So I prophesied, commanded them, and their breath entered them, and they came in life and stood up on their feet as a vast army. So I'll start. And then he says, Son of man, these bones are the people of Israel. They say our bones are dried up. Our hope is gone. We are cut off. That's how they felt at the end, right before the end, because they'd been killed and slaughtered. That's what he's talking about here. Therefore prophesy, saying, this is what the Sovereign Lord says. My people, I'm going to open your graves and bring you up from them. I will bring you back from the land I will bring you back to the land of Israel. Then you, my people, will know that I am the Lord. When I open your graves and bring you up from them, I will put my spirit in you, and you will live, and I will settle you in your own land. Then you will know that I am the Lord. I have spoken, and I have done as I declared. So basically, here in Ezekiel 37, when he talks about this, he shows the bones, and there wasn't much left of them. They were basically dead. And he asked Ezekiel, can these people live again? And it says that these were the people of Israel at the time. And in 48, like I said, he does bring them back. And then if you look down here at Ezekiel 37:21, a little further down, it says, here it says, this is what the sovereign Lord says, I will take the Israelites out of the nations where they have gone. I will gather them from all around and bring them back into their own land. I will make them one nation in the land, in the mountains of Israel. So that's an amazing prophecy. You know, if you line it up with the Holocaust, this is a picture perfect prophecy of it. And he brings them back, and he tells you that he brings them back. He's going to bring them back in the land. And they've been gone for 1,800 years. And these prophecies are just now being fulfilled. If you were to look at this prophecy in 1920, when the Jewish people were still scattered, there was no nation of Israel. There was no Jerusalem. They called it Palestine at the time. But if you were to read this Ezekiel 37, you would have no idea. Like, what is this valley of dry bones that Ezekiel's talking about? How he's going to bring his people back from bring his people back from death. So that's what makes these prophecies so neat, is because these are the things that's going to happen in end times. And like I said, them coming back was the biggest prophecy that we've had in a long time. But let me see. Let me look at my notes real quick. Okay. In Ezekiel 36, we'll go back a chapter. 36, 33. It talks about how the land before they came back, how desolate it was, like I said. And it says here, this is what the sovereign Lord says, on the day I will cleanse you from all your sins. I will resettle your towns, and your ruins will be rebuilt. The desolate land will be cultivated instead of laying desolate in the sight of all who pass through it. So this is what it was like before they came back. It was desolate. There was nothing. And all who passed through it looked and said, you know, what a desolate place. But it says, they will say, this land that, remember the desolate part, because I want to get back to that, because it was basically a desert land, a wasteland. It says, this land that was laid waste has become, now after they come back, after laid waste, he said, become like a garden of Eden. The cities that were laying in ruins, desolate and destroyed, are now fortified and inhabited. Then the nations around you that remain will know that I am the Lord, and have rebuilt what was destroyed, and have replanted what was desolate. I have, Lord, have spoken, and I will do these things. Then there's another request. It says, once again, I will yield to Israel's plea to do this for me. I will make the people as numerous as sheep, as numerous as flocks, for offerings at Jerusalem during her appointed festivals. So will the ruined cities be filled with flocks of people. Then they will know that I'm the Lord. Like I said, in 1920, this would have never, they would have been like, what? Yeah, right. But what people don't know now, Israel today, now, they produce, let me show you, I took some pictures here. They produce so much vegetation. I mean, not vegetation, but they produce so much vegetables and fruit and all these things. And I don't know if I showed you, but it talks about how when they do come back, he's going to make it like a, they're going to be very fruitful. They're going to have all these all these things provided for them. And look at the these are some of the pictures of from Israel, like what they produce, the fruit and stuff they produce. I was trying to get my phone to flip, but there's that. There's this. More here. More here. And today, Israel produces about 95% of the crops needed for domestic consumption. So they're self-sufficient in a desert because they've rerouted the waters. The Jews are very smart, and they cultivate it, and they can do it. They made it work in the land where it doesn't even hardly rain. But only 5% of the domestic consumption, only 5% of it comes from somewhere else. So they make up the 95% of it. Much of the bounty, as well as agriculture technologies and expertise, is exported to other countries and shared with developed and the other developed. So they share their fruit with other people. And at one time, this was desolate. And God said He would bring them back and make it this way. And this has only been since 1945. Let me see what else I got here. Okay, do you remember what it said? Where was that? Back in 36, I think it was talking about how desolate it was, and that the passers through, even people that would pass through, even say, what a desolate place. Well, you've all heard of Mark Twain. Mark Twain in 1869, he got in with a group of these 70 men from this church, and they were going to go over. They wanted to go to the Holy Land, and so in 1869 on July 20th. Him and these guys went to the Holy Land. They wanted to see it, and he was going to write a book on his journeys. And that's what he did. And he, so this was back in, like I said, 1860, I think it was. But he wrote down in his book about what the Holy Land looked like. He said, in the disappearance of the land, he writes, as he finishes his visit, that of all the land there are for dismal scenery, I think Palestine, like I said, which they called it the Palestine back then, must be the prince of it. It must be the prince of dismal scenery. The hills are barren. They are dull of color. They are unpicturesque in shape. The valleys are unsightly. Desert fringed with feeble vegetation. Like I said, desert fringed with feeble vegetation that has an expression about it of being sorrowful and despondent. That's what he said it looked like. But if you look at it today, you can go and check it out yourself. It's flourishing. There's over 9 million Jews now that live in Israel. And like I said, they produce so much crop. And this was all just a blessing, and God said it would happen. 1930, you read this, you'd be like, what? Dry bones and all this stuff, and people coming back to Israel. Actually, in 1920, Encyclopedia Britannica, the Hebrew language, because they weren't allowed to speak their Hebrew language when they were out exiled, so it would basically become obsolete. Like nobody really even practiced the Hebrew language anymore because they'd been not even sovereign nation for so long. And the Encyclopedia Britannica in 23, I think it was, or 21, said that the odds of the Hebrew language coming back to existence was slim to none. But now they all do, and they all speak Hebrew now. They read Hebrew. I'm not sure the language, what it's called, what they speak now, but they all read Hebrew and stuff like that. It's the holy language of God. But let's see here. So that's interesting that it said those who passed through, and Mark Twain basically, helped the Bible out here because he, basically wrote what they did. So this is a picture of Israel now. This whole thing here with Israel, this is what, the part that God actually gave them when they conquered the land back in the Old Testament or whatever. But the green part that you see is where the Arabs live, the Arabs. The yellow part is where the Jews actually get to live, right? And the orange part, which is the most important part, is Jerusalem, in the holy city of Jerusalem, the Temple Mount. Like Jesus was born in Bethlehem, or from Bethlehem. But so the Jews, they don't even have access to this because it's ran by the UN, and the UN is more favored of the green, the Arabs, So the Jews, they can't even go to the Temple Mount and pray. They can go to the Temple Mount, into the Temple Mount, but if they get caught praying in there, they get arrested. So this kind of gives you a picture. So you got 9 million Jews living in this yellow area. It's not very big. And then you got the Palestine. So they're always at conflict, the Arabs and the Jews. But what I wanted to point out is, see, the UN believes that Jerusalem and these holy cities belongs to the Palestinians because they'd been there like 30 or 40 years after World War One. But actually, if you go back and read the history of the Bible, which is actually a history book, but people don't look at it as a history book, it was owned by the Jews. But the UN says, no, it's pretty much, we pretty much believe it's the Muslims. But and there's another Bible prophecy in Ezekiel 36. See, they consider these things the high places, you know, where Bethlehem was and all that, and where Jesus was born in Jerusalem. Those are considered holy places or high places. So if you go to Ezekiel 36, at the very beginning, it'll load up real quick here. If you go to Ezekiel 36, where we was, at the very beginning, it's amazing prophecy. Amazing. Watch this. At the very beginning of Ezekiel 36. Come on, huh? Okay, so here we are. Son of man, prophesy to the mountains of Israel and say, and the mountains is where Jerusalem is and Bethlehem. That's considered the mountains of Israel. Now my phone flipped. I tried to get it through earlier. So, son of man, prophesy to the mountains of Israel. Hear the word of the Lord. This is what the sovereign Lord says. The enemy said of you, aha, the ancient high places have become our possession. The ancient high places have become our possession. Therefore prophesy and said, this is what the sovereign Lord says, because they have ravaged and crushed you from every side. You see how they're compressed. They were, you know, from every side, just like Ezekiel says. So you become possession of the rest. Let me start over on battery here. I get talking so fast. Because they ravaged and crushed you in every side, so you become possession of the rest of the nations and the object of people's malice, talk, and slander. And if you don't know anything, like the UN and they don't like Israel at all. They slander Israel. Everybody wants to kill Israel. Israel doesn't belong in Palestine. They call it Palestine. It's not their land. Iran wants everybody. So it's, you know, like I said, it says, aha, the actually high places have become our possession. Therefore prophesy, and it talks about how they're, and then it goes on here, and then over to Ezekiel 37 is where the valley of dry bones. So how much more of a prophecy could you get? He says, aha, we have your high places. They do. They run all of it. But Israel is back in his land, and the Bible says that eventually, you know, with wars and stuff and everything, that's a totally different video. But I wanted to show you that, and then couple more things. I'm almost done, maybe a couple minutes at most. In Amos 9, Amos 9, 13 and 15 through 15, it says, yeah, I passed it. And so in Amos 13, it says, the days are coming, declares the Lord, when hold on a second. When the reaper will be overtaken by the plowman and the planter by the treading grapes. New wine will drip from the mountains and flow from the hills, and I will bring my people back. I will bring my people Israel back from exile. So like I said, there's other prophet Isaiah prophesied about him coming back, and then in Joel, if you go to Joel 3, 1 and 2, it says, in those days, whenever they talk like that, it's usually in the last days. In those days, at that time, I will restore and I will restore the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem. I will gather all nations and bring them down to the valley of Jehoshaphat. So this gets into more of like it talks about the big war that's supposed to come. But here in Joel again, it says that he will restore the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem in the last days. and then eventually all the nations are going to gather in the Middle East, because everybody around is everybody, all the nations that live around Israel, they hate them. They want them destroyed. So God's going to bring them down, and He's going to judge those people. Hold on one second. I just had one more thing coming. If you go to Ezekiel, Zechariah 2:12, behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling. What trembling means, reeling or anger. So he said in the end, this is end time prophecy. I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling. So, and to all the people round about. All the people round about Israel. Just look at a map and see all the people all around about. He gave them a cup of trembling. They hate these people. They hate the Jews. Behold, my phone timed out. A cup of trembling upon all the people round about, when they shall be in siege against both Judah and against Jerusalem. That's the siege that comes. So that's just another amazing prophecy. Zechariah 12:2. Like, again, 150 years ago, you read Zechariah 12:2. Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling to all people around about. I mean, they'd be like, what? Because but now these prophecies are being fulfilled, and the Bible is basically opening up, because now we can see, like in Daniel, he says that the angel tells him, he says, seal up these prophecies until the time of the end, when knowledge shall increase and men go to and fro. We have increased knowledge, but I think Daniel was speaking of the knowledge will increase about these prophecies, because, and Daniel's another story. I'll do another one on Daniel. But yeah. So that's it. That's just a couple things I wanted to show. How amazing that the Bible is, and that there's more. This is just just a small amount. But if you have somebody teach you and step back and show you all these things that are in the Bible, it's an amazing book. I don't see how it's not written by man. There's no way. People always talk about Nostradamus. Oh, you see what Nostradamus, he predicted this or that. Nostradamus doesn't even come close to any of these. Not even close. And Daniel, he even has some even greater prophecies. And another thing before I go, this last thing, I just heard this one today. I knew it before, but people ask Jesus, when will be the sign? What? Give me one of the signs that of your return. What will it be? What will be a sign? He said that his gospel, I think it's in Matthew 24:14. I think he said, 24:14. He said, my gospel will be preached to the entire world, and when that happens, I will return. Let me see it. I think it's Matthew 24:14. Yeah, it says, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached into the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. When has there ever been a time on earth that this gospel could be preached to the entire world? And he said, not until then. Until that happens, I won't return until it has been preached. This is one of the signs. But my point is, when in history has that been possible? Yeah, it's been spread out but now, like this video, I'm gonna post it on YouTube or Facebook or whatever. Somebody could watch it in, Indonesia or whatever. You know what I mean? So that prophecy, in my opinion, is relevant, because when 200 years ago even was the gospel preached to the entire world? I seriously doubt it. But nowadays, that word is true. So, and he hasn't came back yet. But but I think it's really close. I'll do some more videos because I really like teaching the in-depth stuff that people really don't really know. A lot of these stuff I showed you tonight, you probably never heard of. But if you don't quite understand it, like I said, you got the verses 36 and 37. Read them for yourself. And sometimes it may take you 3 or 4 times to understand it. But you also have to understand the history of like Jerusalem, things like that. And the Bible just comes alive. And just keep your eyes on Jerusalem because they're the main player in the end times, because they're going to be all the nations are going to come against them, and actually does take them over at one time. But the God comes back. But I'm gonna get going. I took a lot of time. Hopefully it's not too long. But all right, have a good night.